Like we have so many layers upon layers of generational tradition and religious spirit. Like we've created this thing, this box, this move is not moving really. We've just created what it is, the methods, the model, all of the things in such a place that we cannot see the idolic nature that it carries. Because I was raised in a home where you better be in church, like you better be in church. But what is the purpose? What is church? Because we talk about church hurt. Church hurt is merely this. Church hurt is people who were hurt by people who should have known better. Because the church is not a building. I don't care what the church down the street from you when you grew up in your small town with a pretty steeple and maybe even had the luxury of a bell that rang at noon to let you know it was lunchtime. I don't care about that. That's a building. It will always be a building. But Jesus called the church to be a group of people. He called 12 men to come follow me. That was the first church service. And every moment they spent with him after that was church. This we want to flock to the moment when he leaves and they go to the upper room. Oh, they got all together. No, because that was only in one moment and then they were ejected out of the room into the streets. So really that wasn't the service. That was the preparation for the service.
So good.
So we've created church out of a moment where they weren't moving, but that was a preparation for them to move. If you think about it, when the day he told us to have rest, it was for the 6 days that we didn't have rest. Have this Sabbath to prepare you for these 6. So church is that. Church should be a Sabbath moment of resting, of preparation to prepare us for the next 6. So if you really get to the heart of what church is, we've broke the model and we've made it about a moment. We've made it at this isolated place, but that was never the purpose of it. So what is church?
As you first were unpacking that, I was immediately thinking of like Jesus coming and being and dwelling in his actual body, like we could touch him and see him, like because he's obviously here all the time, but him walking the earth and churchgoers, even church leaders, while we dress, trendy and cool in our oversized, jackets or our red kicks, right, or our ball caps, would we actually look to Jesus as Pharisees and Sadducees? And the religiosity and the denominational divide and the fact that like this pastor who is 2 miles down the street in the same denomination doesn't know this pastor. And what are we actually building when we think about building a church or church planting versus what does it look like to plant the church inside of a human, which is really what we did with Session unknowingly. Like we didn't have language to it. We weren't saying, oh, we're getting out of this box church and going to a living room because we're going to plant the church inside of each of us and we're going to start ministries out of it.
We even tried to make it.
We did.
We even tried to recreate it. Like in the beginning, that's what we knew. I've been raised in church my whole life. We tried to recreate it in a living room. It doesn't change it. When you fit the model, doesn't matter where you put it.
True.
The model was broken. God's like, stop it. Just stop it.
Yes. And when we finally released that, we were just on the Founder Collective call about talking about surrender versus submission. When we finally submitted to the fact that his ideas are better, his ways are higher, and what church is to me is family. And so family is that communion moment. And that could just be me and Jesus. That could just be me and God in those moments of communion, but it's also the gathering of when 2 or more are gathered, there he will be. And so that could be very intimate versus a mega church. And I'm not saying mega churches are bad. And we are 100%. I mean, obviously Anthony is a pastor of a local church that is also online and broadcasted. You guys can tune in to In the Red and also go GGC at any point to see it. So we're not anti-church, but it's anti-establishment connected to the systems that are broken. And this is for all of you listening who are entrepreneurs in the space too. Like if you're going after trying to use a formula of somebody else's system and it is not applied to you and how you are supposed to operate in your unique identity within the family, you're going to constantly feel friction. And so when you're processing that for the local church and what we're doing from a mobilized perspective in the marketplace, how do you process what the Lord is doing in both and the importance of both?
Well, I really think they're both important if the heart of it's the same. And we use the terms mobilized church or local church. It doesn't matter the adjective you put in front of it. If you don't tap into what church really is, you can put anything in front of it and it's still as broken as ever. It doesn't matter if it's rolling down the hill or if it's stuck in a
The
nice, pretty
heel.
box.
His
It
Arkansas is
is
coming
still,
out.
yeah, it is still broke. And I think
Yeah.
that's why we have to get to the heart of what is church. And that's been my heart when we did the session, we got out of the box church as it was, and really God really began to restore and undo what we even thought church was, and have those crazy moments where we just come in and have conversation and he just take it all of a sudden in a hard left, and you weren't even talking about him at all, but now a door opens up and someone's in tears because in a moment of conversation about something as simple as football or whatever it was, you connect a moment of hurt, and in that moment they feel seen, and now there's an open door for you to plant a seed of truth in them, to help them walk through it, to be the shoulder, whatever it is. Those types of moments that aren't happening because we walk into a prefabricated service and sing this type of song, then this type of song, and then we finish with this type of song, prepare the sermon that's always preached in this format, and now all of a sudden we walk out and we're not even a part of the service. They didn't connect with me at all. It was theirs. They orchestrated, they fabricated it. So I come in to get what they've prepared for me, instead of trusting that God has prepared something for me personally. And it's not saying anything horrible about it, because you can
Right.
walk in those places and receive something. If you're
Totally.
the Holy
I did
Spirit,
for
I can
years.
walk in
Yeah.
the most stale of service.
Yeah.
And I remember walking into some of those in the old days, and I would be like, I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm in a place now, regardless of what it is. I can be in the most crazy spirit-filled services, and I'll just be quiet, like sitting there. It's in that place that I'm experiencing my own personal moment. I don't have to be lost in the sauce with everybody. Or I can be in the most quiet, non-hand raising church, and in a moment of worship, there's a moment for me to raise my hands. I care less if anybody else is doing it. I'm going to do what I'm in that moment of my personal worship, whatever it looks like.
Well, I
So
think that there's maturity connected to that, right? And I know at first when we were coming out of session and out of our living room, and we were church searching, we were church hunting, we were whatever you want to call it, church shopping,
yeah,
and we were going to all of these different places because we were trying to curate this emotion that we needed, that we had established together in Parkway, and then together in the session in our home. And it felt like all these pieces were broken, and we were trying to be like, okay, well, when this happened, this is how we felt, and that was good. And when this happened, and this is how we felt. But no matter where we went, and even still to this day, I share this with Gary transparently, is I feel this tension because it feels as if we walk into a place, like you're saying, that has been orchestrated all in good nature and out of love and for good reason. And I know that there can't be as much fluidity as there is when we meet together. But I feel like all of the gifts, everyone's anointing doesn't get to fully show or be on display. And so there are moments where I'm sitting in the pew and I'm like, or it's not a pew, it's a very comfortable chair actually. I feel like I'm in a straitjacket, whether it's connected to worship or whether it's connected to going up to pray over someone, or I have a prophetic lens that I want to share with someone. And that's not the house's fault. That could be my own fault for thinking this is how I'm supposed to operate because these are the unspoken rules of this particular church. But help me like break through that, because it could just be a personal thing. But it's been quite a few years that I've been.
I'd say more times than not, it's not a personal thing. There are definitely some restrictions in most churches.
Right.
I've seen it, everything from you walk in and there's signs up that say leave your babies in the nursery, like you can't bring your kids in here. Like,
yeah,
we've seen it. I've been a part of ministries that like did everything they could to get children out because they wanted that person's number one attention. But you know what? That's not what the first church was. That's not what Jesus said. He said, bring them to me. How do we neglect scripture that talks about why are you trying to keep the babies out? This is a moment. Like, you know me, I'm pretty wide open. I don't care who comes in. You can have a crying baby. You sneeze, I'm going to say, bless you. Easter service this year, we had a little kid that was playing with a ball and it come rolling down the middle aisle. I picked it up and took it back to him. Like, that's just who I am, because I think there is this freedom to just be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not, it doesn't wreck our, anytime we build up this thing, this timetable, this progression of things to try to ramp it up to get you in a place in your fields that I can connect you in that place, then I've orchestrated that and I've removed God out of it. And I think
Yeah.
that's where the church has become broken at. We've become good at doing church.